that came to light, these allegations, then both Fani Willis and Nathan Wade vehemently and under oath denied that. They said, we did not enter into a relationship until well past 2021. The appointment happened in 2020. They said, or 2021, they said we didn't come into a relationship till 2023. And it looks like now, given this testimony that we saw before the court, it actually happened in 2019. So why this matters is that these defendants have now brought a motion before the court to say there is, at a minimum, an appearance of a conflict of interest and potentially an actual conflict of interest. That the team that brought this case against the former president of the United States and 18 other defendants was compromised, was materially compromised in the form of fraud. And so what we are seeing is an evidentiary hearing before the judge who will determine, in fact, whether there is evidence of a conflict of interest. And from there, maybe the case is thrown out, but really what would happen is the prosecutors would be removed and it would all start over again. This victory for President Trump, what is looking like a victory, would be monumental, and the delay is important. But at the end of the day, I'll just say that if you're going to bring a case against the former president of the United States, you better have it dialed in. I have never seen such a sham, such a joke of a case as this has illustrated, as I have against half of the Americans for tax fraud that we see every day, that the government waits to be buttoned up and dialed in before they bring it. This is humiliating at best.
You know, Rosanna, as we watched today, that gentle old man who is her father, who also has a background in law, was put in the position today to have to say that she had a boyfriend in 2019 named Deuce. And the only reason he knew about that was because he and she were sharing a residence at the time, the dad,
right,
and Fani Willis. This went deep. It was supposed to be her on the stand. As a voyeur, was that a good witness?
Listen, he was honest. It seemed like he was honest. And he was her father. He's her father. See, he's defending her. But he had so many wonderful lines, okay, about cash and how it was a cultural thing. Can we talk about that a second? Because, you know, as an Italian American, yeah, it's a cultural thing in our background as well.
We do.
We do it too. But you would expect a different behavior from Fani because she's in the legal profession and because she is now going after the former president of the United States. I would have thought she would have played everything by the book, everything to the letter of the law, not to get herself in trouble.
Let's take a look at that if we have it. It's Fani Willis's dad when he was asked about his daughter's finances and all of that cash.
When your daughter moved or left the house that she owned, did she say anything to you about having a large savings of cash?
Oh, no, no. See, maybe, excuse me, and Your Honor, I'm not trying to be racist, okay? But it's a black thing, okay? You know, I was trained, and most black folks, they hide cash, or they keep cash.
Hide cash.
Right, hide cash. It's a cultural thing. Come on, I know you said you don't do it in your family. And I know a lot of people, you know, during COVID who took a lot of money out of the bank and hid it in their house. But this is a legal prosecutor. This is a prosecutor who should be following the letter of the law. And it seemed like the way she withdrew cash was also suspect.
Well, she never said she withdrew cash. She said she had it all around everywhere. She had 3 safes in her house.
But she said she would go to stores and she'd take out a little bit more when she used her card. You know, she was taking a little bit more cash.
Did that help Fani Willis and Nathan Wade? That's the whole line. That's the whole bottom line of all of this.
You know what? I like her father, and I'm sorry that he was in this position, you know.
It's an awkward position. So, Paul, as an investigator, you're looking at this, and you're kind of putting the pieces together. Do you have enough pieces?
Well, the timeline matters. You know, it's one of the first things you put together. So according to the testimony yesterday, they were involved, as per her friend, in 2019. In 2020, Wade was at her house at least 10 times, okay? I'm assuming he wasn't there to check the meter. So that is very clearly a conflict right there relative to this timeline. As far as the cash goes, she said yesterday, I think inadvertently, well, I had campaign cash in my closet. So looking at the cash issue, you know, in a nutshell, there's cash and then there's cash. And campaign cash stuffed in your closet, we're getting into troublesome territory. She's also got potentially even some perjury issues here. This thing has to be moved. Her whole office is tainted.
Carly.
Okay, so this from the start has reminded me of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial because everybody's watching for the salaciousness of it. It's part salacious, part legal. Everyone's watching for all the gossip, but the legal matters more. And we were introduced to Fani Willis's dad yesterday when Fani brought him up several times.
She did.
And at one point said, the only man who's ever paid all my bills is my daddy. So clearly they are close. And I am sure she is watching this right now. And this was really hard for her to see. And she is probably thinking, was this relationship worth possibly blowing up my career and seeing my father on the stand as well?
So let's talk about watching, because something that Phil Holloway said to me last hour, former federal prosecutor, she said, you know, Harris, she wasn't supposed to be watching any of Nathan Wade yesterday.
Right.
There was a sequestration order in place, and he felt like she clearly came out and reacted very emotionally to whatever Nathan Wade had said. And my big question is, when you say the state, you also mean the defense in all of this. So in terms of handing Trump's case over to someone else, all those people will have been defending her in this.
Right, that's a great point. And, you know, she brought that up when she said on the stand, you know, I'm not the one on trial here. It's Donald Trump. Like, she at all times, I think, is very cognizant of what her North Star is. I have to make this additional point. I know you know what I mean. When you flip to the back of the bar, I'm seeing opposition to Putin.
Yeah, so NYPD's intelligence is primarily counterterrorism, but you would bump into Russian things occasionally, primarily in the sort of gangster world. And it just goes to the fact that they really are a gangster state. And Putin is essentially a mafia don. And he's made a rare and, I think, severe miscalculation here for him. He's created a martyr. And, you know, he's got somebody now that encapsulates and personifies the resistance. And he normally doesn't make these kind of blunders. And so I don't know, you know, whether it was just he's getting to the point where he's a little bit desperate, he's up against the wall, etc. But, you know, with Russia, in terms of leverage, it always comes down to energy politics, right? Oil and natural gas are the fuel of their economy. And the Europeans better recognize who he is. They played, you know, the Germans laughed at Donald Trump in the UN when he said, you're going to be beholden to Russian gas. You better wake up. They literally laughed at him. I hope they're waking up now, because there's no putting lipstick on this pig. It's a gangster state, and he's just revealed it.
Harris.
Yeah. You know, I keep thinking about what we learned a couple of days ago this week about the threats against the United States by Russia. And while that material has not been declassified, that intelligence, lawmakers on the Hill are learning even more about what that would look like. Yeah. You know, some of it involves shooting down satellites and disrupting our communications among our law enforcement and so much more. And from the White House, you know, they're still in the process of diplomatically engaging with countries that have assets and interests in outer space before they start to release more information. This, to me, is exactly what this is a thug move.
Yeah.
This is letting everybody know that if you try to push against us and try and find out more information about what we want to do to the United States, we'll respond particularly to things that the United States has spoken about. The president said he'd put in consequences if Navalny died during his presidency. We don't know what those look like, but that's what Putin does. He kills him. So anything connected to us, I think as an American public, we need to know more about that national security threat now with Russia.
Yeah.
Don't need to know every detail, but what does it really look like?
Yeah, and Emily, Harris, you bring up a great point about how we respond now. How does the Western world respond, and who is the leader of the Western world? The United States. President Biden already said that there would be consequences, so what does that look like? Vladimir Putin clearly feels emboldened right now, so much so that he just did an interview that aired on Russian state TV, and he was asked, who would you rather win the election, President Biden or Donald Trump? And he responded, Biden. He's more experienced, more predictable. He's a politician of the old formation. That is not an endorsement that you want. Read between the lines. What does predictable mean? It means that you know what they're going to do. You know that President Biden isn't going to do much. I think you could even venture to wonder if Alexei Navalny would have been treated how he was if there was a different president in office today.
All I know is, can the United States afford to get into another war situation? I mean, how many more things can we get involved with?